Sawadee welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen. So today I am making these desserts that are so cute, so pretty, and really yummy, and it only has 4 ingredients. These are the perfect thing to bring to a party because they're naturally vegan and gluten-free, so anyone can have it. Or with upcoming Valentine's Day, these will also make really pretty edible gifts. So here's an idea for you. So what I am talking about are these coconut water jelly cubes with fresh fruit suspended inside. It's gonna end up looking kind of like jewels. So cool. So in Thai, these would be called วุ้นน้ำมะพร้าวผลไม้สด. I know it's a little long, but วุ้น is agar jelly, which is what we're gonna use to set this dessert. น้ำมะพร้าว is coconut water. And ผลไม้สด is fresh fruit. So this video is sponsored by UFC Coconut Water, which is my personal favorite brand. It is from Thailand, and this is the one I always buy because it is the sweetest, most fragrant one in my experience. And UFC is a brand that's well known, popular in Thailand. It's been around ever since I was a kid. So without further ado, let's get started. So I've got some of my coconut water in this pot here, and I'm going to sprinkle my agar powder into here. My coconut water is still cold. You don't want to do this while it's hot, otherwise the agar will clump. Now, let me just touch a little bit on agar powder. I have lots of videos on it, but quickly, this is the package that I get it in. I get this at my Asian grocery store. You can also find it at health food stores. They'll sell it as sort of like a vegetarian gelatin substitute. If you are not using powder, so if you're using flakes or sticks, just do a quick Google search on conversions because you'll need to use different amounts, okay? I also have a video on Agar FAQ, frequently asked questions, which will answer many of your questions. I will link to that below as well, all right? So I'm gonna bring this to a full boil while stirring frequently. If you don't stir, all the powder will settle at the bottom, and then once it starts melting, it'll kind of form a thick gel at the bottom, so you want to be stirring. Now when you choose coconut water for this, it really matters the quality because as you're gonna see, it is the main ingredient. I'm not adding any flavors, any extracts, anything in here, so it's got to taste good. And if you've tried many brands of coconut water, you will know, as I've discovered, that the flavors vary a lot, right? And that's because packaged coconut water is actually a mixture of mature and young coconut water. And the ones that are sweeter and more fragrant, they have a higher proportion of young coconut water in it, which is what you want, okay? Now, if you want to know more about the differences between young and mature coconuts, I have a little documentary on that. You can check it out. I'll link to it below. But UFC is definitely one that is one of the sweeter and more fragrant ones. So now this is fully boiling, which is what you want. I'm going to turn it off because you don't want to reduce the volume too much. Now I want to check that all the agar is dissolved. That's really important. And what I'm going to do is use a metal spoon because that'll show better any sort of little granules that's undissolved. So I dip it, I pull it up, and I pour it, and I should see no dots of any specks stuck onto the spoon. Now this coconut water is already quite sweet, but we're making desserts here, so I'm going to need it to be a little sweeter because the coconut water naturally, it's not a super sweet beverage, right? Which is why I prefer it than drinking soda or juice because it's a low sugar beverage. So for dessert, we're going to need to give it a little boost. Just some sugar. And you can make this less sweet or more sweet. It's completely up to you. It will not affect the recipe at all. So you can go ahead and give it a taste before you finalize. So once the sugar is all dissolved, I'm going to add the rest of my coconut water. And I do this so that this will be a little bit cooler. We won't have to wait for it for so long to cool down. And you don't want to use this while it's boiling hot because then it's gonna cook your fruit, which I discovered the hard way. Especially, I mean, some fruits are okay, but like strawberries, yeah, they're gonna get mushy if you pour boiling hot agar mixture on it. So I put some cool in it. It still needs a little bit of time to cool down, which is great because we are gonna need time to prep our fruit anyway. But you don't wanna let this cool down too much because if it reaches room temperature, it'll set and then you can't use it, right? So you wanna keep it warm. Right now it's still quite hot, so we'll have time. But we kind of gotta hurry. So because I want these to look like individual little jewels, I'm using cube molds. So these are silicone cube molds that you can buy on Amazon. I will link to it in my kit, but also I got these at just a local cookware store. But you definitely want one that's flat on the bottom. And not all of them are flat on the bottom, as I discovered the hard way, so make sure you really look. So what we want to do is put our fruits in the mold first. I've got a variety of fruits here, and you want to pick fruits with different colors, so it'll work really well. I know there's only 4 ingredients. I counted fruit as 1 ingredient, okay? So I'm cheating a little bit, but you can do 1 fruit if you want. For Valentine's Day, definitely strawberries, because they're going to end up looking like little hearts when you're done with it. I find the flavors work really well with berries and tropical fruit. Okay, so I got blackberries, strawberries, blueberries, pineapple. Make sure they're sweet. Mandarin oranges definitely have to be sweet. The first batch I tried and the oranges were kind of like, you know, one of those tart-ish, sweet-ish. You need sweet ones, okay? Just a couple of tips on the strawberries, the way you want to prep them. First, you want to pick strawberries that look as perfect as possible, like this. Look how perfect this one looks. And also one that's not bigger than your mold, because then you're going to have to like cut them up small and it's not going to have as pretty of a shape. Cut it in half, and then you're going to have this beautiful heart shape, and I'm just going to carve out the green tip like this. So then it retains that sort of shape. If you cut it flat, then it's not gonna look as pretty. Mandarin oranges, you can buy the mandarin segments already done like in syrup, and that'll be super easy and it'll, you know, guarantee that it's sweet. But if you want to use fresh, here's a tip. See all this white fuzz? I don't mind eating the white fuzz if I'm just eating them fresh, but for this you want to get rid of them as much as possible. Otherwise, the color is not going to show through very well. What do you call these things anyway? I find that running like a paring knife through really scrapes off the little bits that you can't really use your finger to pull off, and then the orange color will show through a lot better. A note, if you want to use gelatin, you can. You can use for this recipe, but stick to the end. At the end, I'll talk you through some tips that you really need to know if you're going to substitute gelatin. All right? So I'm going to put in, oh, look, it fits perfectly. The side up, because this top side will be presentation side, or you can do it the other way. It doesn't matter. A note of caution, do not put too much fruit. If you put too much fruit, the jelly will not, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't have enough point of contact, and then it won't hold together. So you want the fruit to not be touching too much the sides, and then the jelly can't hold together, right? So the mandarin oranges particularly, you want to choose, if it's big, just do 1. Yeah, maybe I'll just do 1 big one. There we go. So Adam wants to say that if you put too much fruit, it loses what?
Structural integrity.
Structural integrity. There you go. He's my dictionary. So by the time I am done fluffing about my fruit, my agar jelly should now be perfect temperature. And it is. It's just lukewarm, which is perfect because it means it's not going to set on me, but it's also not going to cook my fruit. Now I'm just going to pour, making sure that it doesn't go over with surface tension. Now, if your agar is already pretty cool, you want to be kind of quick about this, because once it hits the fruit, it's going to cool down even faster, and you don't want it to set right now, because I'm still going to go back and fluff about my fruit a little more to make sure they're in ideal position. Okay, so now with like a knife or something, you want to do one thing. You want to make sure it's not sinking, because you want the fruit to be closer to the surface so you can see them better. And also you want to make sure that no flat surface is sitting smack, like sucking to the bottom, because that will again interfere with the structural integrity of your jelly. So you want to go in and like flick them up a little bit so that definitely the bottom is cleared, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, and now I'm going to go and fine tune any ones that are a little low. Okay, that's perfect. If some things are sticking up above, I don't really care, but if you really care, like this strawberry, for example, sticking up, you can wait till it's kind of like semi-set and then just like push it down and then hopefully it'll stay a little more submerged. We did a little. That worked a little bit. Okay, that's 2 sets. You don't want to mess it up. Okay, so now we just have to wait. I want to tell you a true story, a true personal story about coconut water. As many of you know, coconut water is really high in electrolytes, so it's really good for hydration after, an intense physical activity. So when I was getting ready to give birth to my son, I packed one of these in my hospital bag because I wanted to make sure that I was well hydrated for that intense physical activity. Of course, along with a bottle of champagne for when it's all over. But there you go. It has a little bit of a sentimental value to me. There you go. It is all done and set. Now, I'm rushing this a little bit, so it's probably not as cold as it should be for eating. So when you're eating it, make sure it's completely chilled so it's nice and refreshing. But I have places to be. Turn this upside down and then just push it a little bit so that it will plop right out. Hey, look at that. Almost all of them came out. And this happens every time. I never get all of them in one go. This is actually quite good. Come on. Woohoo, look at that. Now, this side looks cool, but I want presentation side to be up. So I'm going to turn them all around. Yeah, these are still a little bit warm. I can still feel it, so I got to be really gentle with them. So remember when I said you have to be really careful that fruits are not sitting flat at the bottom? I want to show you what happens when it does. It'll break like this one. See this pineapple here? It was sitting flat against the bottom, so it had almost like no agar jelly in between. There's just no structural integrity in that part. So that's what you want to avoid. I'm going to unmold this one on black and we'll see which one looks better, black or white. Look how pretty these are. See, imagine like you show up at a party, a potluck, you put something like this on the table. People are gonna want to know what that is, and it's healthy, it's refreshing, it's not too sweet. I do want to talk about using gelatin instead. You can definitely make it happen. A couple things to keep in mind. One, you cannot use a mold like this. With gelatin, you want to use individual molds. So each piece should be in a separate container because unlike agar that just kind of slides out, gelatin really clings to its container. And the only way to unmold it is to dip it in hot water to ever so slightly dissolve the outside before you dump it out. If you put it in something like this, guess what? You can't dissolve the outside because the outsides are all attached to each other, right? So what you'll end up doing is you'll have to dig it out with a spoon and then eat it in a bowl like a pudding. So unless you want pudding, make sure they're in individual molds. Another thing about gelatin is there are a few fruits you can't use. So no pineapple, no kiwis, and I also think no figs is the other one. Because some fruits will have an enzyme that will actually eat the gelatin and make it so that it won't solidify. So if you want to use kiwi or pineapple, you want to use the ones that have been cooked already to deactivate the enzymes. Another thing with gelatin is it has to be cold in order to be solid. So while this, you can like unmold it like this, take it to a party and let it sit out, or like pack it up in a little container and give it to somebody as a gift. With gelatin, you don't want to do that. If you want to do that, you have to keep it cold, otherwise it will melt. Gelatin's a lot softer, this is a lot firmer. So overall, like agar is a lot easier to deal with. Gelatin is easier to mix because you don't really need to bring it to a boil or anything like that. It dissolves more easily, but then it becomes finicky at the end. So just know that before you start trying with gelatin. All right, it's that time of show where I get to eat. I'm gonna cut one up in half actually to show you. Eating agar jelly is a bit tricky because if you try to fork it, it can sort of crumble. So if you're just amongst friends, you can just grab it with your hands, but I just want to cut one open and show you what the inside looks like. Oh no. There we go. Look how pretty that is. But once you cut it, then you again interfere with its structural integrity and it could fall apart, but I just want to show you the inside. And I'm just gonna eat this one. It's so refreshing. That subtle flavor of the coconut water just goes so well with fresh fruit. It's a little bit tart, but still gotta be sweet. Strawberries have to be, you know, still a good sweet strawberry, but with that a little bit tartness, it just works so well. It was amazing to me because coconuts and strawberries don't grow in the same parts of the world, yet somehow the flavors work together so well. And this may look like a lot, but trust me, when I was doing recipe testing for this, I finished an entire plate like this in one sitting. Because when you think about it, it's just coconut water, right? It's not that much coconut water and just a bunch of fruit, and it's so light, and you eat one and you're like, oh, but now I want to try this one, and now I want to try that one, and then oh, I want to go back and try this one again. Next thing you know, it's all gone. So my advice to you is make a lot, maybe double the recipe, because you're gonna find that you'll keep going back to it over and over again. So the recipe, as always, will be on hotthai-kitchen.com. When you make it, I definitely want to see a photo. These are so pretty, so send them to me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you do so you don't miss an episode, and click the bell icon as well so you get a notification when I post a new video. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time for your next delicious Thai meal.